All right, congratulations everybody. We're here. We made it to C1X. Today we get to talk to Rich Smith and John Thompson, aka JT. How are you guys?
Doing great.
Doing awesome.
Thanks for having
Happy
me.
to be here. Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, I'm glad we could make it happen. So one of the big topics we'll be talking tonight is Nexus. I know you guys are kind of the big dogs behind the curtain. We're also obviously missing Pete Cashen here tonight, but you know, he felt comfortable with letting you guys represent, which is awesome. But someday we'll get Pete Cashen on, maybe.
Yes. I don't think he likes the attention, but
No.
you know, we'll work on that.
But yeah, don't be mistaken. He is the OG. He's the godfather of disc golf in Kansas City. I think everybody knows that too. So
Yeah.
But, he doesn't like to take credit for that. That's why he's probably not here tonight. But credit where credit's due. Pete's the man for sure, no doubt.
Yeah, because let's just jump right in. How did the store sort of get started? Because it was Dynamic Discs of Kansas City, but then obviously we were recently rebranding to Nexus. But how did it kind of all start?
Right. So, the Rosedale store, that Pete lives in that area. He was one of the key factors in the Rosedale Park, and that store opened, I believe, in 2012, and Pete facilitated that from the beginning. Pete did have ties to Dynamic Disc. He's always been close friends with Jeremy Resco, so as Pete does, he was supporting his friendship in that, and he took on the name DD. I think that was, I want to say maybe 2014, 2015 is when Pete kind of took it over, and he works with Scott Reek and Josh Harvey there at the store, and they were in the right place at the right time. You know, they hit the COVID era. That little small store did a great amount of volume during that time, and that store has always been something that's been close to Pete's heart, and he kind of took it over during that time.
Do you know the story of how it evolved from the disc being at Oklahoma Joe's and then going over to the store?
Right, I don't know the transition timeline there exactly. Okay. So I know there was a period when I think they were even available at both.
Okay.
And but I think that was kind of proof of concept that the store could be supported there. It was that Joe's Barbecue was doing pretty well out of the gas station.
I mean, that's where I bought my first disc.
So. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of us did, right?
Yeah.
Little kiosk right there.
Yeah.
And, certainly one of the busiest parks in town, and that's really been a great location for disc golf in Kansas City. And there was the old store down in the Crossroads back in that Rick Rothstein owned. That was Disc Golf World. That's where I bought my first disc in like 2010 or so. But
Yeah, down in the Crossroads.
right,
Yeah.
right. That store was down there for a long time, and Dick Parker and Rick worked down there for a long time, and eventually they had that open, and then the store in Rosedale, they both were open at the same time for a while, and then eventually Disc Golf World, I think they shut down, and then kind of things moved over to Rosedale a little bit, but yeah, that's the history that I know of from Pete. Pete could do a lot better.
Oh, sure. No, I know that he started selling them out of his truck, I believe, and I think that's sort of the relationship with DD is that DD sort of supplied him his first round of discs. He really liked DD discs and things like that. So, but yeah, and the Rosie, your guys' Rosedale store is a staple to the community for sure, as Rosedale is like the number one played course in Kansas City. People love that location for sure.
Yeah. Everybody that knows Kansas City thinks of Rosedale and Waterworks. So those are kind of the two courses they think of for sure. So no doubt.
Well, and then the genesis for the North Store is somewhat interrelated. Obviously, there's some popular courses up north.
Yep.
And so the idea was, let's take retail up to the Northland, but also let's kind of reinvent what disc golf retail can look like. And let's, create a store that when you walk in, like, this is a legitimate sport. This is, I want to be a part of this, right? And so we looked at lighting, we looked at flooring, we did a lot of things to really try to present disc golf in a more professional light, I would say. And then having the players lab in the back was another big step kind of for Kansas City to have that ability to get lessons and improve your game.
Yeah, because you've got the tech disc all set up back there, right? Which is super nice, yeah.
Right.
And I heard the new net came in. Is it installed yet with the bigger spacing on it?
Yeah, we've got some new nets. We're constantly improving that lab back there as we go. So, I mean, the first concept, the first version of that lab, tech disc wasn't even really a thing. It was just kind of starting up. It was really just the idea of having as you might find in a golf store, is like a pro on staff there to help. As player development's a big part of what we're trying to accomplish as well. So that's one thing I thought we were missing in Kansas City was that not only here's a disc
Yeah.
and kind of describe what you do with, but actually some place to go show. Here's the technique and kind of give some lessons and make that connection from introducing the sport to helping develop player development part of it. That was real important for what we wanted to accomplish up north for sure. So.
Yeah.
And that's taken off. We've been really happy with that. We've got a couple of coaches that work out of the store, and that aspect is right on track where we'd hoped it would be for that.
And honestly, I don't think it's talked about enough, the support that Nexus gives to the courses.
Right.
I mean, the amount of time and effort, money that has gone in to help Rosedale,
Right.
Waterworks, Hobby, and others, it's
Yeah. I mean, 100%, like I was going to ask you that because I feel like you guys and like the stores have had their fingerprints on almost every course in some fashion in
Yeah.
Kansas City. And like I remember seeing Rosedale, it's like, oh, there's brand new baskets all of a sudden. It's like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it's like these guys.
Yeah, and Pete is so, he's just in it for the right reasons. So he doesn't want attention. He doesn't want a pat on the back. He just loves frisbee and he loves disc golf. So it's really pretty cool to get drawn into that and be a part of it. So.
Yeah. So like, how do you guys see, like, I mean, so like the love of it and Pete and like giving back, like, what does that look like now? Like, back then it's like, okay, just get new baskets. You need new baskets. Sure, here you go.
Right.
But are you guys playing a more active role in like seeking out and like facilitating more and more?
Yeah. Something I put a lot of thought into personally is, how do we, take that baton from Pete and pass it on to the next generation, right? So how do we make that connection of that legacy of the sport and giving back and really being self-sustaining in that sense? I think there's part of it's information. So that's a big part of what Nexus is about, is really telling our story. I think that's the number one reason for the rebrand, was the opportunity to step back and ask people, well, why'd you change the name? Well, there's a lot of reasons we changed the name, but really the main one is to have that fresh opportunity to tell the story, tell Pete's story. And that is sustainability, right? So it's the ability to use the store and then the revenue that's generated locally to help reinvest back in the parks in Kansas City. So, with the history where we're at, there are a lot of established courses that need renovation and upkeep, right? So we're seeing that too. We're seeing properties that we initially improved and then now are actually getting unimproved. I mean, they've got erosion issues, they've got a lot of things, and the attention needs to be. So not only do we need to build new courses, we need to take care of the ones we've got. So where does that responsibility fall? And that's another area of misinformation. I think a lot of times new players come out to a park and they just assume the city built that course, or the city put those baskets in, or just like a playground or something, other amenity that might be there, and that's not the case. We are the caretakers of those properties, right? So does it fall on the club? Does it fall on the stores? Does it fall on, where does that responsibility fall? In our mind, it falls on the store. That's kind of what we feel. It's that someone needs to step up and take that role. And that's really what Nexus is about, is connecting all those things and just continuing to do what Pete's done over the years.
Because some of that is confusing, right? You see the new baskets go in and you see the certain things, but then you see dynamic discs on the basket and like, oh wow, like from Emporia, like they're working on our courses.
Right.
And it's like really confusing. So
It's going to be Nexus now.
well, it's what that is, right? Is that kind of one of the main reasons to change from that is to just, let's rebrand ourselves. Let's make sure they understand this is Nexus doing the work.
Yeah. Right.
Well, I think the store is way more about than just selling plastic.
Yeah.
And when you look at it in that terms, then it's like, okay, how do we present ourselves? And if you think about Dynamic Disc, which is a great organization and a great company, they're primarily in the business of selling plastic. And we want to help players develop. We want to develop new courses. We want to help improve courses. We want to bring the community together. We want to bring new players in. There's just a lot more that defines what we're trying to do, which was the genesis for the rebrand ultimately.
Yeah.
So,
But that's definitely one of the reasons too for the rebranding. There's always been that confusion. Is Dynamic Disc the store? Is it you sell just dynamic disc products, or is that the priority or not? And that's, even from the beginning, that's not been the case. We've always offered all manufacturers, but that is it locally owned, or is it owned out of import? You know, you've got all those things too. So once again, the goal is to rebrand and tell the story that Nexus is Kansas City Disc Golf. It is at the heart. It's that tradition and then that culture that Pete started. And that's kind of what we want to do, is rebrand it, so there isn't any confusion. You know, the other reason that I've noticed too, just being at the parks and really trying to plug into the community, is I see this disconnect sometimes too with the OG guys. So the guys that were out there playing before COVID, the guys that helped build, you know, the Rosedale Rogues and those guys, I just call them the OG guys. And then you've got the COVID golfers, the new guys coming into sport, and there's a disconnect. You know, there's these two entities, and there's not a lot of crossover. And there's a lot to learn. And when we get these groups together, there's some magic that happens, but they don't have enough opportunities for that. So that's another thing for the rebrand, is that opportunity to kind of create events and things like that to kind of bring that community together too, is another really interesting part of it that I've noticed, that, you know, it's just really, and then some of the new players don't have necessarily the understanding of the history. I'm still learning the history of the game, and I came in later in life too. So that's another thing, is just the connection of the community. I think that's another part. And when we talk about Nexus, the definition of Nexus, which is the idea that Rich came up with initially, we just love that initially, that Nexus actually truly means is connecting in a series of connections. So,
Well, and the logo that we have, it's that interlocking chains, right? And so there's a connection to the disc golf sport, and then a connection to the definition of what Nexus is, which is cool. So thank you for helping us with that.
Oh, yeah, sure. Sure. No, that's super fun.
Yeah. But you said something really interesting. So I played Cedar Ridge last night, and it's like, to look at the on-course improvements. They're subtle,
right.
but somebody's taken an active role, and that's like a dynamic course. And I love seeing that. And there's a fence here. They've lifted up the canopy there, and it's just more playable than it's ever been. And you know, you always wonder, does Kansas City need more courses, or do we need to improve the ones that we have? And I don't know what the answer is to that. Maybe a little of both.
Yeah, why not both?
Why not both? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think improving the courses we have, making them try to feel, you know, scale them up a bit and stuff like that. But a lot of things that times we talk about too is, if we're going to build new courses, honestly, the Shawnee Mission art course is incredible. I just finally went and played it like 2 weeks ago, and I'm like, I'm bringing my whole family here. This is incredible. My boys will absolutely love this course. And we just talk about all the time, like we need smaller courses like that, because if you've got family or kids that want to play, the original Shawnee Mission Park or Waterworks, that is a lot for them, and it can kind of like, I don't know, Dad, like this is really like hard. I'm tired. Like I can only play 4 holes, and they're ready to go. Like, yeah, I'm kind of in favor of, let's just keep improving the ones we have. Rosedale's looking better every time we visit. We play there weekly.
Right.
Yeah.
We just, I don't know if you have hands in Bad Rock at all, but we just played Bad Rock today. That course is looking incredible.
Amazing.
But yeah, like just continuing to like push those courses, move the basket like 50 feet that way, you know, and then maybe take out these and just keep pushing and redesigning. It sounds really cool. And then if you're going to put in new courses, I don't know, I'm kind of liking the little 9 holes, and make them just as cool as the big ones. Because the Art 9 at Shawnee Mission, I mean, you have to carve lines, you know, that are, it's like 100 feet, but, you know, and I birdied every hole, but it's not like a, but it's really fun versus, you know, the Black Hoof 9 is, you know, I don't know, it's a little more open. There's a couple 3 holes that are really fun, 4 holes on the back of it, but that's my personal opinion on kind of what to do around town. But
Well, the Art 9 is really a fascinating story, and I need to give props to our friend Clifton Alexander. It was his idea. And he took it to Johnson County, and Johnson County is a very pro disc golf organization. And they actually created a committee and took applications and came up with $120,000 for these artists to submit. And I was just there this week, and I watched a dad and his 2 kids that were probably about 8 or 10. They all had starter sets from like Dick's or something. And it was just the coolest thing. And then the leaves weren't fully out, and you could see how the course kind of goes up the hill a little bit and then comes back down. And I'm like, this family is gonna have such a great time together, and that's
Yeah.
what it's all about.
Yeah, I've already been like reaching out to like my wife and stuff like, because what's great too is there's like a really incredible playground like
Right there,
right
yeah.
over the path.
Right.
Yeah.
There's like 2 picnic tables in between them. I'm like, I think we could come here for 4 hours and half the family could be like on the playground running around, and then because you could see up the hill, like I could just watch my boys run that course, and they would probably play 3-4 times, and it would just be such a great family community.
Yeah.
Did you
Scenario.
happen to see the honeycomb putting?
No, I don't know.
So you know what I'm talking about. So one of the artists submitted this honeycomb idea, and it's giant. It's 8 foot tall, and it's got these honeycomb holes. And his idea was to put chains behind it, and you'd aim for the holes.
Oh my gosh.
And I happened to be on the committee, and we're like, that is so cool. Let's put that out front to warm up, or it could be like a tiebreaker when you're done. Like you and your buddy are tied. Well, let's go to the honeycomb and have a putt off or something. Right. But it's a pretty cool.
Yeah,
idea.
wow. Yeah, the artwork's great. Just very well done. So
Yeah, I think, and like what we've seen in the UDisc data growth report,
Right.
like those like 5-hole to 9-hole courses are just incredible. They're easier to put in, require less space, and they're great for new players, to introduce new players to the sport.
From a design perspective, they're so much easier too when you consider the safety factor of it too. So when you're designing longer courses, there's a lot of consideration for where this may end up and traffic and things like that. So that is, I think the phenomenon you see is a lot of the guys out there that are doing design and are that deep into the sport and passionate about it, they want to build courses for them, right? So it's a discipline to throttle that back a little bit. I know that Pete brought me in on City Park was one he got the funding for, of course, and started.
Yeah, that was another one I was going to say.
It's another one that I would go out there and I say, "Oh, Pete, we got to move this," and I'm thinking about shots I want to throw, and he kept throttling me back. He's like, "No, this is not for you.
This is for
This
the
is for
mainstream.
right."
Yeah.
So that course was thoughtfully put out where we've got the fun 5. The first 5 holes are very beginner friendly, so you can come just do a little 5-hole loop, and then the course kind of get progressively longer as you go.
Yeah.
And it ends up with a pretty legitimate hole by the time you get to 18. But yeah, those are the kind of courses that really, as you guys said, they're crucial right now for the development and introduction to the sport.
And that was one of the first courses to have bilingual
Right.
English and Spanish signs.
Right. Yeah, it's actually the first one in North America. We found out later
Yeah.
on. So yeah, that was very, and that is in a neighborhood that there's a lot of Spanish-speaking community, things like that too.
Yeah.
So we also, when you build a course, you want to try to cater to the local community too. That's another thing. But that's another classic example of, I know Johnson County Parks and or Wyandotte counties who worked with on that one. They were thrilled to see the impact that we had on the safety of that park.
Just
With
the
healthy
activity
traffic.
and traffic.
Healthy traffic and what that does, and then the neighborhood and how happy they are to have us there and how things go too. So it's that harmonious thing that happens sometimes that makes it really special. Right.
Well, I'm going to brag on you here. You've got a course opening up this spring that Nexus/JT was the designer on in DeSoto.
Well, yeah, that was a project that I think Rick, you brought that to us, right?
Yeah,
Right.
it came through me, but you
was a
you
joint
had your
effort.
fingerprints all over it.
Right. I've got to spend some time out there. So yeah, that's another good example of the secret sauce is when you've got a local city or parks department that's behind. So when you've got a couple guys that are on the parks department that are disc golfers, you see that special touch. So DeSoto's been a pleasure to work with. They've got a couple of guys that are doing a lot of creative new touches out there.
what's the name of this course?
It's
It's Riverfest.
Riverfest
Yeah.
Park there in DeSoto.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's right on the river. It's we had to get a little creative, get 18 holes in on the property because we were a little bit handcuffed by the river on one side. But and there's a train track on one side too. But yeah, we got a good balance there. It's
Yeah.
another course that's got the first 7 or 8 holes are pretty short, then it kind of widens out as you get in the open. But yeah, I know a lot of people are going to like that. It's kind of a connector too between Kansas City and Lawrence. It's kind of halfway in between. So hopefully we'll see some play from both areas out there. But
When
And
does that open?
I heard June 1st.
yeah, the target right now is June.
Yeah.
The pads are in. We've already we're letting some grass grow right now. We're doing some rock work They just built one of those, a cake for one of the holes out there. So a lot of cool things going on. So we're trying not to rush it too much. That's the other mistake sometimes people make is they try to rush it a little too soon. But
Yeah.
we're letting it
Yeah,
recover.
they want to
from
get some grass. Black Hoof kind of had that issue where,
Yeah.
they were,
right.
and they've done a good job. But going back to Riverfest, one of the things I've always wanted disc golf to be a physical activity, but also an experience.
Right.
And the Kansas River is this river that you don't ever really see. You drive over on a bridge and like, oh, there's the Kansas River. But literally, you are right. It is right there. And we had to avoid like getting too close to it because it can get dangerous in high water. But it's such a beautiful setting. And I'm going to be really interested on how it drives traffic because that park is really cool, but I don't think many people go there. And it's going to be interesting to see how, and then the walking trail that you incorporated it in, I think was brilliant.
Right.
So it was multifaceted.
Yeah, there were some locals that the area that we put the course in, there was a handful, maybe a dozen or so that would go back on their routine basis and walk their dogs, and they really appreciated having this kind of wilderness area. And so when they saw us coming in there and doing some clearing and stuff, they started to get a little bit worked up about it. Like, kind of the selfish attitude, like, no, this is ours. And, so yeah, we were able to incorporate a trail that kind of worked around the course in harmony with it too. So we're kind of appeasing both parties too. And hopefully, I'd love the ideal about that too, is you get people walking those courses and they see the sport. And that's how I found the sport. I was at Shawnee Mission out there running and I saw people playing. That's how I got involved with it too. So
I hadn't heard that before. That's
I
cool.
love that sometimes if there's a trail around a course,
Oh yeah.
in my case, I was running out there and I was like, I'm going to run. I might as well be doing something. So I just grabbed a couple of frisbees and I would run and play the course. And then eventually, as we all have, fell in love with it too.
Got the bug.
So I love when there is public interaction with courses. A lot of people, like the Waterworks case too is another example too. We had that sidewalk that got put down through the middle of a couple holes there. But one positive thing from that is we have people that are interacting with disc golfers, and we've got some people playing that used to just walk through the course.
Yeah,
too,
I
so
didn't
it's kinda
actually.
nice.
I've never thought about that. Like having a path safely go through a disc golf course,
Right.
to almost invite people to like, hey, look at this. Like it's
You
pretty
can
sweet.
walk and do something. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, and all the work and volunteer hours that go into improving and beautifying the property, other people can enjoy it too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the more people getting outside,
yes.
the better everybody is, right? So, but yeah, the DeSoto was just an example of a city that was anxious to get involved, and we're seeing that on a larger scale all the time, where they're seeing these parks departments communicate with each other, right? And they know, like, hey, we put a course in, and it really drove a lot. And then we tell them the numbers to expect, and they don't believe us.
Yeah.
And when we just kind of shared some of the numbers at City Park or something like those things, DeSoto was like, "Do you really think that many people were coming?" We're like, "Yeah, they'll come." So they're excited about it.
So we, through the Kansas Flying Disc Association, we had a county reach out to us. Do you remember the name of the county? Anyway,
South
it's,
Central Kansas.
yeah, it's the second poorest county in the state of Kansas. They have a state lake there, which is their saving grace. If they didn't have that, the county would be dead. But they're applying for a grant and they want to install a disc golf course. And so they reached out to us and we're helping facilitate that. But it's like a tip of the spear to try to drive people to come to this really poor part of the state and give them something to do. So it's kind of a fun story to start helping people in that regards. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you make a destination course, people will absolutely come.
Right.
Even if it's in southeast central Kansas.
second poorest county in Kansas.
Well, yeah, and the value, the bang for the buck too. I mean, you consider, I'm always blown away when I see these city budgets, and it's like, we put in a 9-hole course for less than a small playground equipment.
Yeah.
Less than
Right.
one
Like,
piece of
it's
the
like,
playground
yeah,
equipment.
right. So the layers of
Yeah.
politics and red tape that makes something happen in disc golf, we're able to do it it's pretty economical amenity, so to speak, I think in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's very attractive.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like just a disc golf store in Kansas City. Like we didn't even talk about come shop at our store.
Right.
I think that's one thing that's been really cool and fascinating to just meet you guys. We met 4 months ago, and we just kind of dove straight in. I've always said to you, it's incredible how fast you guys move. I don't have in my design studio, like I don't have clients that move as fast as you guys. It's crazy. Like I have to try to keep up with like your next idea. Usually, you know what I mean? It's kind of the other way around. Like I have a ton of ideas and I'm like, can we go like, and it's like I'm almost having a hard time keeping up with how many avenues you guys are in and things you're touching and your involvement. And it's like, yeah, you have your store, but it's all the other stuff. Yeah. I'm like, dang, these guys are really intertwined with everything. And you're just, the passion that you guys have is really impressive and encouraging. And
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. But I think it's also just a byproduct of where the sport is. I mean, we're thinking of new things and inventing new things across the country. And, you know, where the sport is going to go, it's really exciting to be at this point where we can be creative and do some things that haven't been done before. So we're having a lot of fun too.
One thing I've certainly noticed is it is a great ownership team. The three of us have different skill sets and different drive.
Still trying to figure out my skill set.
Right.
We'll work in progress.
You're talking about a connector, this guy, right? As I said, he's connected with DeSoto and this other, he knows a lot of people and that he brings a lot to the table from that. Pete's a doer. He's always been a doer. He's got connections out there. And I've got some passion too and some drive. So just the three of us, it just really feeds off of each other. So it's been nice to kind of, and we're all at that point in our careers too, where we're kind of on the tail end of it too. So this is a hobby for us and a passion, but it's something that we put a lot of energy and effort into too. So, but it's been
you
great.
do put a lot of energy and effort into it. So
It's been great.
Well, I'd like to kind of transition back to, I'd love to know how, Rich, you got into Frisbee, because you have the Kansas Flying Disc Association.
It's a mouthful, I know.
That's all right. And then we've got these Frisbees on the table that I'd love to talk about. And then, you brought this, I thought it was a board game, but that's just how discs came.
That's how they came.
So hopefully they can see that on camera. I think they can, but just like clearly you have a ton of there's a whole table full of discs and things that you brought that would be a whole nother episode by itself. So we should do that sometime, but
I got a little carried away. Sorry about that.
no, what? No, we absolutely love it. Like Dick Park, we need to get you and Dick Parker on an episode together, just like show and tell. And Scott and I just literally don't say a word. But do you want to talk about sort of when you got into it and just sort of your history of getting into Frisbee in general?
So I was in junior high in Topeka, Kansas, and was at a friend's house, and he had a Pizza Hut promotional Frisbee, like a Humphrey Flyer, ones that don't fly very good. But like probably all of us, we were just fascinated by the flight and the possibility of flight and just watching it. And nothing beats sitting on a tee box and watching anybody throw, and it's like, I think I know what the disc is going to do, but I'm not sure. So I was fascinated by it. I played traditional sports in high school, football, basketball, and track, and I probably got a little burned out on that, just the organization and the structure. And Frisbee was just a breath of fresh air, and it was different in the late 70s and early 80s. It was really more about the overall events. It wasn't just disc golf. Disc golf was a part of it. We called it Frisbee golf because that's all there were Frisbees back then. And I'll have to give credit to my friend Mark Wisby. He and I really connected over flying disc sports, and it just kind of took off from there. And this is an actual Midnight Flyer 40 mold that I used back in the early 80s, and this would have been before Innova came out with the Eagle and the Arrow, the bevel edge disc. So this was a 40 mold. And what's interesting is that you literally would play a round of Frisbee golf with one disc. Okay. In a tournament, you might have a second in case you lost it or it got stuck or whatever. But it was just really, really simple. And I tell you that the difference, there's several differences between the sport now and what it was back then. Back then, you had one disc and you had to make it do what you wanted to do.
Right.
And today, it's a little bit more cerebral actually, because you're trying to throw a more consistent throw and let the disc do the work for you. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Mm-hmm. And so that's to me was a big difference in the sport.
That's the hardest thing from like me transitioning from an ultimate Frisbee world to like over to disc golf, where I'm just like, I don't really know what these discs are, and I'm just going to try to like, oh, I need an Anheuser, or I need an outside in, and they're like, it's called an Anheuser. I'm like, that's so confusing. But yeah, because I'm just used to the one disc that you make do what you
would just
want
make
to
it do, yeah.
Right.
And ultimate is a great like segue into disc golf because you've got to be able to control. There's a lot of wrist action there.
Yeah.
I've told this story, JT, sort of before, but the very first disc golf tournament I entered was 1981, and the targets were chicken wire circles. They were probably 2, maybe 3 feet around in diameter, and they were set on the ground. And so you literally would, do an approach or whatever, and you'd have to do this to try to get it to drop into it.
So you'd have to, like basketball.
Like basketball, yeah, and on the ground,
gosh.
yeah. And targets is a whole nother fascinating, because I learned to play on object courses.
Yeah.
Now they were standardized object courses, meaning it was the same tree. You'd go and play. We had a course at Gage Park that we would play with the Heart of America, but there were object courses, and then it was the chicken wire thing, which is interesting. And there's a rumor going around that Ed Hedrick saw somebody doing that, and he's like, frisbees aren't made to like be thrown vertical like that. So it was the impetus for him to come up with something better.
Okay.
Tone poles, you and I were talking about that, and there was a tone pole course. I mean, Waterworks was, I guess, a tone pole, and those were.
Is it really? Like,
Yeah, we just removed a tone pole from Waterworks Park in the last cleanup. So yeah,
Really?
what?
I don't
never.
know. Right. I don't know how many were there. I don't know exactly what the layout was.
I would have loved to see that, or someone to be like, "That's a tone bowl."
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
They were, they were, for me, I'm not a great putter, but they were, I mean, it was hard to hit a pole that big.
Right.
And they had a piece of tape down about a foot off the ground, and they supposedly filled it with concrete up to that point so it would make a different tone. So it would make it like a tone when you hit it correctly, and then it'd be like a thud down low. Yeah.
Interesting.
Right.
But it was pretty economical. I mean, a piece of pipe probably isn't that expensive. The very
I mean,
first.
maybe they should bring it back because, maybe putting's too easy now.
I don't know about that.
If you hit the pole, we know we're good.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
No spit outs.
Yeah.
0 spit outs.
But you could see the arguments that could happen in a foursome in a tournament. Like, did that
Did that make
hit
the
the
appropriate
tape?
noise?
Did that make the noise? Did it, graze it?
Right.
So the beauty of the basket of the pole hole was that it's either in or it's out. I mean, it's pretty cut and dry.
Sure.
The very first pole hole course that I played was at Lake Perry, and this would have been 79, 1980. And it was it was designed by Ed Hedrick, incredible course. Think of Cedar Ridge, but shorter because these discs, they wouldn't go as far.
Right.
But it was way ahead of its time, and it was out in the middle of nowhere, and it eventually closed. And this is a great story. The Kansas City, I think it was the Kansas City Frisbee Club back then, before it changed to disc golf. They purchased the baskets and brought them to Rosedale. And so to kind of have that historical legacy of the first basket course in Kansas and have it be at Rosedale, that's really cool. And by the way, if anybody's interested in the history of courses in Kansas, if you go to the Kansas Flying Disc Association website, we have a lineage of all the courses up until the year 2000. There's 2 lists. One is object courses, and then there's also standardized courses. And
Yeah, I was kind of like browsing your website, and just the pictures on there, the photos, like
Yeah.
yeah,
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty sweet to see that history.
yeah, which is what we're trying to do, just preserve that history before it's gone.
Yeah.
Nobody's getting any younger, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like we're in a unique spot in our sport where like you were there, like like all of these people are still living like that were there at the beginning.
Right.
For the most part. And yeah.
Well, you bring up a really good point because, we've all traveled around the United States, and it's interesting how the sport has developed different. And so I spent a lot of time in Phoenix, and the disc golf community there, it pales in comparison to Kansas City. Just the courses and the established structure. And you really have to tip your hat to the OG guys, Ace Mason, Rick Rothstein, Tom Engel is a legendary gentleman that started Swope Park. A lot of credit. and Pete Cashen and Dan Cashen, a lot of people did a lot of work to set a foundation for disc golf in Kansas City that honestly doesn't exist in a lot of other parts of the country.
Right.
So we're lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to finish your question,
I don't even remember my
I was a freestyler.
Oh, yeah.
And so disc golf was something that we did. So there was in Kansas City, it was Gillum Park. In Topeka, it was Gage Park. And it was a place where frisbee players would get together after work or after school, in my case. And you would play, you would freestyle, you'd practice distance, you'd DDC, you'd play ultimate. But at the end, we'd always play disc golf. And it was an object course. And so it's just different now because disc golf is kind of like the flag bearer of the sport. But anyway, I was a freestyler. I loved freestyle. Did halftime shows, KU, K-State, Kansas City Kings. That's dating people, the Comets. Toured some. I did a little bit with Bud Light, with Hal Baby, a little bit with Sunkist, but just love frisbee. Love everything about
What do
it.
you mean with Bud Light and Sunkist?
So
Toured with him? Is that what you just said?
So Crazy. So the original Bud Light team was Hal Baby Kurz, Crazy John Brooks, and Neil Adams. And Neil Adams just recently passed away. He lived in Springfield, and he was just a phenomenal overall athlete. But anyway, freestyle is 2 to 3 minute routine set to music, choreographed, and you get, like, think of the Olympics and like gymnastics or something like that, where you're graded on difficulty and presentation. And back, in the late 70s and early 80s, it was kind of the rock star sport. I mean, everybody wanted to freestyle and do trick catches and throws and spin it on your finger and do all that kind of stuff. And I devoted a big part of my life early on into that. So,
But you were like the Bud Light team and the Sunkist team because you were sponsored by them, or just
so
they were
I
the
was
name of
never
your team?
officially part of the Bud Light team, but I did some shows with Hal, and we wore Bud Light stuff.
Okay, because they sponsored you guys.
Yeah,
Okay.
they sponsored it, and then
Like halftime shows and stuff.
Halftime
We need to get
shows.
Bud Light and Sunkist back into frisbee sports because they're not here anymore.
I know.
Like that sounds like big time.
That-
What happened?
right,
Now
yeah.
we've got
Some
it.
outside money. That's what the sport needs. Is some outside money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are. Well, you,
But-
JT. Oh, sorry.
yeah,
Keep going.
this is the 40 mold Midnight Flyer.
Yeah.
This was the standard bearer really in the late 70s and early 80s. As far as whammo is concerned, this was the 70 mold, and it was somebody discovered that smaller and heavier would go further, and so this added about 30% of distance. So then you started to carry 2 discs. This was your driver, and then this was your approach and putting disc. And then we're going to save it for another, but I've got the test shot Eagle. I've got the Space Shuttle Eagle over there.
Yeah,
I've got a Lightning, got a Puppy.
Well, you got to come back.
Yeah.
Right.
It'd be fun to kind of talk through some of that
Would
stuff.
love that. Would
Yeah.
love that. So you're saying 40 mold, 70 mold. What does that mean?
So-
Is that the weight?
No, it's the mold, the physical mold that
That's
these
just
were
what they
cast
called
in,
it.
and it's actually, you can see it here.
It's like a version number type of.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So whammo.
You can see the design is different. Like even them sitting on the table,
Yeah.
right? The
you
pink
can
one
see
is
how this edge
slimmer.
is different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not as tall.
Yeah.
This was literally the transition to bevel edge disc. The transition, if you were to do it that way.
Yeah. And this, in your hand, this felt like a bevel edge disc. I mean, it just felt like it was going to go.
After throwing this.
After throwing this,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then when the Eagle came on, I was at a Frisbee tournament in Fort Collins, and we show up from Topeka throwing these, and Doug Brannigan, who was part of the Coloradicals freestyle team, he pulls out these beveled edge Eagles. So we're throwing distance in this field, and my throws were staying within the field, but he was throwing this Eagle across the street into the yard across from this field, and it was just like, whoa, what is this? And that was the summer of the Huntsville PDGA World Championships, and the Eagle was available, but it wasn't available all over the place, and so it was a big debate. Do we allow these to be used in the 83 Worlds or not? And ultimately they decided to let them use it, but not everybody had them.
So, I mean, was it those people were in the top 10 if you didn't have one? Or
I don't know. I think if you
Okay.
lived in California and you were close to,
Right.
champion
No
disc,
internet. right?
Yeah, no
Right.
internet. And it
So I
was all
mean,
mail
information.
order.
There was pockets. And there were. That's
Yeah,
fascinating.
I don't know how you found out about
Right.
things back then. You just did. But
Right.
That's incredible. Yeah. Well, come back.
okay,
Right.
We're going to talk about that whole table of stuff over there. Yeah. Right. And we'll put it all on the table and we'll just kind of
Yeah.
pick them up and walk through it. JT, you're just running through the park, huh? And just saw frisbees.
Well,
flying.
first of all, just to kind of summarize, every time I hear Rich or anybody else talk about the history, it amazes me. I mean, it's just one generation. I mean, we think about the sport; it's relatively a new sport when you can compare it to other mainstream
Yeah,
sports.
yeah.
So, right, it's really interesting. It feels like it's an old sport, but it really is. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really just one generation lifetime has experienced the entire start to finish.
Yeah.
Well, and I wanted to say earlier when you were talking about the OG guys and like the COVID
Right.
guys, I'm like, hold on, I think there's a couple generations in there that I feel like Scott and I are removed from. Like we are removed from the OG guys.
Right.
yeah,
So when we have
too,
like
honestly, yeah.
Cooper Arnold and Kevin Zane and Pete Burez and like all that stuff, like they're talking about stuff that we were not a part
Right.
of. And we're not the COVID boom. I don't know.
We're in the middle somewhere.
We're kind of like in between there somewhere. We're like when YouTube started with disc golf. That's like when we were kind of like catching on.
2010, 12.
Well, you were like
Yeah.
15 and I was like 18.
Yeah, I was like 14, 15, somewhere in there. Yeah.
But you started Ultimate first.
I played a decade of Ultimate before that.
Okay,
Yeah. I didn't even really know about disc golf until after I got out of college.
Right.
But I'm just saying, like my little generation there, like even Peter just played a little bit before me. He was sort of like, he knows a lot more history of the OG guys and stuff like
Right.
that. But it's just like, there's,
That divide.
we're in this weird,
Yeah.
it's no longer 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, not the way the internet's involved and stuff like that. Now it's every 5 years is a new generation. And I think that's true to this day. Like, so it's kind of amazing just how much you know and how much you just don't know.
yeah,
Right.
Even 5 years removed from that time that it was happening. But
Well, and look at Rosedale versus Black Hoof Park. I mean, right there is the Rosedale is a classic park style. I call it a 1.0 design where there's a park, maybe it's underutilized. Let's buy some baskets and let's put it under this tree or put it along this tree line. Rosedale's evolved, to be more than that. But that was kind of initially what it was all about, an underused park, and let's get some people out there. And then you look at Black Hoof, where it's a dedicated piece of property designed specifically for disc golf. And you think about just the potential in doing it that way, it's off the charts. And so you can see the direction of where the sport is going in that regards,
definitely.
Rich, of course, the driving factor for Black Hoof. I don't know if everybody understands that or not, but yeah, he's the one that made that course happen too. So influence.
Well, I was at the right place at the right time. I was actually at lunch with the mayor of Lenexa, and we were just shooting the shit waiting for a third person to show up. And I just mentioned to him that playing a lot of disc golf. And the mayor said, we've got this park and we've got some property. Why don't you hook up with the parks director? Yeah. And unfortunately, the parks director was brand new. So he said, hey, give me a little bit of time to get my feet wet, but to come back. And we got Eric McCabe involved to do the design. And the company that I retired from, Henderson Engineers, they stepped up and did a 10-year naming agreement. In my mind, it was like, it'll be like the T-Mobile Center or whatever Sprint Center. We're going to be like the Henderson. But we're really proud of Henderson stepping up and helping making that course happen.
Did you think it was going to be called Henderson Engineering Disc Golf Course?
No, I didn't. The way it turned out, I think, is great because Black Hoof, it's a historical name that goes back to the heritage of Lenexa. But we were able to work it out so that if you go to UDisc, and UDisc has a limit of how long you can.
I've heard that.
Yeah. But I think it's Black Hoof driven by Henderson Engineers. So we got our name in there, but I didn't really want it to be because it needed to be Black Hoof.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Same guy that didn't know how for sure if he contributed enough to our team, right? Yeah.
I think
So,
it's obvious how
right.
much you're contributing to
Right.
just the world of frisbee sports.
Right.
It's pretty clear. So, and it's been fun to just meet you and realize this as well. So because we play Prairie Pass a lot, and I know you guys were involved with that one as
That
well.
was so much fun to take that course in the middle of Johnson County. And there's no courses. You got Heritage, but Heritage is If you live in Overland Park, Heritage is a little bit of a drive.
Yeah.
And I played that course, dirt, tee pads, no signs, kind of janky baskets.
Yep.
And I approached the school district, and the Blue Valley School District they were so cool about it. We laid out this 3-year plan where we'd phase the improvements, create the second tee pads, and put in real tee pads. DFX Disc donated the baskets,
Oh, okay.
the MVP baskets, so shout out to them. But anyway, the school district got so excited about it, we went from 3 years to really about a year and a half. And so it really,
It happened really fast.
yeah, it happened really.
Because I played the dirt team.
Yes,
You
right.
know, so
Yeah.
And
my family plays that course a lot. So.
And some of those holes, I mean, the course gets a knock that it's a beginner easy course, and it is. But there's
It
some
should
holes
be.
that are harder than
Right.
from the back baskets. I'll never par. I'll never birdie one. A couple
yeah.
of those.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And fast forward a couple of years, was it last year, early last year, we did a class for all the middle school teachers in the district out there
Yes.
too. So that's another thing we've done through the store is we do clinics for PE teachers that want to introduce disc golf and to
Okay.
their students too. So that's another thing we've been pretty
yeah.
proud of. We
So
did-
JT led that, and then he also led a similar course for all the PE teachers in the Shawnee Mission School District.
Yeah, we had 85 teachers, PE teachers in one place for an entire day, and we went through and we set up a course. And yeah, there's been, matter of fact, I've got a teacher that's asking for this. They're putting a new course in at their school too. So
Wow.
What is the goal of that? Is that to just kind of introduce them to the sport, or is it to introduce them in a way that like now they can introduce it to their students, or how does what was the
It's
kind of goal of
a
that?
teach the teacher kind of thing, right? So
Right,
yeah, give them enough to, and then the school district bought some resources and they've got some portable baskets and some discs, and now they're adding it as a section in their PE classes. So they do a 2-week unit on disc golf every year. So what's nice in those middle schools, they'll get it 3 years in a row, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So they'll have 6 weeks of disc golf. And, it's a screening process, right? It's just, we want just the opportunity for kids. And that kind of gets into my story a little bit. But
Yeah.
Let's go there.
I didn't find the sport until the day after my 40th birthday is the first time I really was introduced to disc golf. And, like many of us, it's like, where's this been? It's like, and that's really what the passion is about the youth, is just to have that opportunity to pick it up at a younger age, right? So, but yeah, I was, as I was saying, I turned
Jogging
40.
along.
Yeah, I turned 40 and I had a resolution I was getting shaved. So I think it was the second day of running a little loop out there at Shawnee Mission Park. I came across a couple of guys that were playing the course there at Shawnee Mission. I just kind of asked a few questions. They said, yeah, there's a Void Against Sports over here. You can go get a frisbee down there. So that's what I did for about 6 months. I had 2 discs and I would run the course and just see how quick I could play the course.
I did some running guns back in the day
Right.
as well. I was sort of like
Right.
dabbling in disc golf, but I was also trying to be in shape for ultimate because we were like,
Right.
the whole thing. So I was like, oh, I'll just do running. So I would do 2 rounds in like an hour and a half or whatever,
I think I got to where I could run
or an hour.
that 18-hole course in and complete the holes in like 20 minutes or 25
Yeah.
minutes or
That's
so.
impressive.
You'd be surprised. I think I was doing like,
Right.
I was playing Lake Olathe and doing it in 30 minutes.
Right.
And my score would be like maybe better
Right.
than if I just took my time.
And then, yeah.
There's some hills out there too.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So yeah, I just like, if I'm gonna be running, I might as well be doing something, right?
Yeah.
And then I got, and guys asked me, "You're out here a lot, man. What do you?" I started realizing I was a par or so or whatever. And they're like, "You want to play a tournament?" And then the rest is history. But it's just that fascination. I'd play frisbee on the beach, or I always was fascinated with flight. And I think that's when I say screening for disc golf, that's what I mean. It's just that opportunity for a kid to throw a frisbee. And you'll see them in those classes. Some of them will throw it and they'll immediately turn to the next thing and they're off to something else. But then you see that 1 in 3 or 4, they throw it and they're like,
They're kind of locked into the
and they're
whole
just
flight.
like fascinated with flight. And I think that's the commonality. I think if you really get to the guys that stick with the sport, and you hear it when you're in a park too. Someone will throw a crazy shot and you hear 4 guys on the tee pad like, oh, it's that fascination that really I think is the draw to that part of it. But yeah, that was my 40th birthday, 15 years later. I'm sitting here talking to you guys about this. But yeah, it's been a lot happening in that time. But I've played all over the world. I've partnered with these guys,
all over the world. What
States
do you
too.
mean, like?
Yeah, I've played in Europe. I've played in Hawaii. Played in Canada.
Like recreationally, or
Yeah, just traveling for work and stuff and
Yeah.
taking the opportunity. That's the other thing. When people ask me what I love about this sport, I always bring up a few points. Obviously there's the obvious things that, it's good exercise, it's free. But for me, it's more like I wish I'd have found it sooner. Like when I had kids at home that were young and I was playing golf. And, I was gone for an entire Saturday and spending $100 and, I couldn't bring the kids, so it's that aspect of it too, is that I see it's more family oriented. You can go after work and play a flex steer and still be home for dinner, those kind of things too. So lots of benefits to sport. But yeah, for me, I just found a little later in life and, it was something that was missing and trying to make up for lost time, I guess. That's what drives my passion now, is just to elevate the sport, I think, is the other thing that you and Pete and I have in common, is that there's always been that stigma sometimes with the sport that we face. I'm a dental consultant by trade, and I know Rich works in the professional world a lot, and there's always sometimes that you tell your buddies what you're going to go do, and they're like, what? Disc golf? And there's just that kind of like chuckle or whatever, and there's just that. So, there's that part of it too, kind of breaking the stigma of what the sport is. But really, just the elevation from education all the way through is another thing that drives our passion too, is just to take it to the level it deserves.
Because what's that stigma from that perspective? Because I think, at least from my experience, the stigma with any frisbee related thing is that it's just a bunch of like college drunks,
Right.
or
Hippies,
like just want to get exactly. And it's like,
Right.
I was never like that. Like, I played it because I loved it so
Right.
much, and I was extremely competitive, and I wanted to do really well,
Right.
And then I would hear this, I'm like, well, you should come watch, because I think it'd be totally different. And then people would finally come watch, and they'd be like, oh, this is just not what I expected
Right.
at all. And
Yeah.
But from an old, like you're saying 40, 45 and the corporate kind of thing,
Right.
Is it the same sort of stigma that you're talking about, or is it a little bit different?
Right. I think it's just not being legitimate, just not like, oh yeah, you play
Like,
or
golf makes sense, disc golf
right,
weird.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not
Okay.
a mainstream thing.
Frisbee golf.
It's that. But those same guys that 10 or 12 or 15 years ago would kind of give me this questionable thing. Now they're sending me TikToks and videos of aces,
Yeah.
and they're and they're playing and everything too. So it's kind of like, yeah, I told you so kind of thing, But so yeah, I think it's that. I really.
So what he's talking about, I experienced in spades.
Right.
Playing in the late 70s and early 80s.
Right,
sure. I went to college, got a degree in engineering, was in a fraternity. But, there is a stigma about the sport. And honestly, it was a big, like I mentioned that I had talked with the mayor of Lenexa about playing Frisbee. And 10 or 15 years ago, I wouldn't have done that.
Right.
In fact, I spoke yesterday at a DBIA convention and talked about disc golf. I talked about ball golf too, because I play a lot of ball golf, but I talked about disc golf. And I think
I have no idea what DBIA is.
it's Design Build Institute of America. So it's I'm an engineer, so it's in architecture and engineering area.
Right.
But I think the thing that I'm most excited about with the sport, so Morley Field in San Diego, I think is the #1 most played course
In the U.S., maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I played in the WIFDIF overall worlds. I played there, but what really caught me off guard was, like, you have to make a tee time online. There's a starter there. It's like, man, this is so cool. But the thing that I noticed, that there was a really heavy Latino factor of people that were playing. And I think that's one of the great benefits of disc golf, is that it can be a sport for more of the masses. The entry point to ball golf is expensive, time consuming, and here's a sport that's, in comparison, is relatively easy and it's relatively less expensive, and anybody can do it. And it's just really cool to see the masses from different demographics come together and play the sport. So
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there's the perception or the stigma part of it, but then also I think there's the professionalism and the business side of things and things too, that the sport has seen an influx of just clubs that are set up the right way. They're registered not-for-profits. We've got, when we do design work, we've got insurance. There's that, the stores, the way they're run, and I think there's just a lot of those things too that is a breath of fresh air to the sport, too. So this elevation on that side of it too, which drives the other. So I think that we try to attack it from all angles as far as elevating the sport itself as being one of our primary goals for sure.
Well, it kind of ties into Reactor Project a little bit.
Right.
But this is a cool story. So the director of parks for the city of Lenexa, his name's Logan Wagler. And his son is the #1 rated basketball player in the state of Kansas, Gatorade Player of the Year.
Wow.
And he's a senior. He committed to Illinois to play basketball there. But he's a disc golfer. I mean, how cool is that? That Logan, was totally behind Black Hoof Park and supported it. And I've seen him out there with his boys playing. And I texted him the other day. I said, "Is Keaton, your son, is he still playing?" He said, "Oh yeah, we love playing together." So I just think that's a cool story of passing it on, but yet being a legitimate sport where the top high school player in the state of Kansas is playing disc golf.
Yeah.
So.
And we'll get there, but eventually, we're absolutely still very young as a sport. Like, we have to understand that. But eventually, you're going to be talking about D1 athletes like this who are like, no, I'm picking disc golf.
Right.
Like, we'll get there. It might take another decade or two, but it will happen where, the sport will be large enough, like golf or something, maybe even not quite, but it's still just like, that's a legit career, like 6 figures.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go that route on tour.
Well, scholarship.
I could start now.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't even have to go to college.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Right.
And that will be crazy to start watching.
One thing that's been fun for me to see is I have worked with Ricky Wysocki quite a bit, and we were just at a Royals game just last night, and walking in the stadium, you're like, Ricky, and just getting noticed by people in the crowd and stuff. It's like,
that's cool.
I mean, that's amazing to me, and I love it also. I love it when I travel, and I'm proud to take my disc golf. That's my carry-on in the plane, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, there's always that thing when you kind of pass someone else in the airport and they give you one of the, it's almost like two guys on Harleys passing on the highway saying, "Hey, what's up?"
Yeah.
So I love that part of that camaraderie. So that's the other thing I think that we all agree is that the other draw is the community, right? So that's a big thing I would be remiss if I didn't mention is that we've all got the things about the sport that we love, but I think at the end of the day, the community is probably one of the biggest parts of it.
Well, because the community of frisbee sports in general, that's like the biggest attraction for me to Ultimate was just the community aspect.
Right.
It just wasn't the same as soccer, basketball, and baseball, which are the sports that I played a lot of.
Right.
And it was just like, I don't, like, I'm not going to go into my story, but like when I just saw the guys throwing a frisbee around at the pool, I was like, this is different.
Right.
And I asked them a lot of questions. And then I knew I was going to college and I was going to play Ultimate because I didn't have anything. I was like, I'm going to go to graphic design school, but like I didn't have a sport that I was going to be playing anymore. But seeing that and then like just the way that they were so inviting to be like, oh yeah, you're on the field with us. Like they see you run. I'm like, okay, he's kind of quick. Like, oh, he can catch it. Like you're starting.
You're
like,
on.
You're in. Yeah, you can't throw, but we'll teach you. And I just remember my coach at K-State just bringing me right in day one, just being like, teach me the flick. And all of a sudden I'm playing summer league. I mean, it's just a community that like sucks you in and just wants you to be a part of it. There's like almost no competition there, especially within the realm that you're playing. Like your team, you're not like fighting for starting positions.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you are now in the Ultimate world because it's gotten pretty big. Like there's pro leagues and stuff like. But when I was getting into it, that was just so attractive to me. Like, oh my gosh, like they just want to play.
Are there referees yet in the UFL?
For sure, yeah.
There are. Okay.
Yeah, nobody's keeping stall counts or anything like that anymore. It's the spirit of the game is officiated.
Right. But that community, it transcends all disciplines of frisbee. It's the ultimate. It's the freestyle you experience. It's disc golf now. It really is something that's pretty special.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So JT, tell us more about Reactor Project. We're all
Yeah. Look out.
Yeah, you mentioned Ricky. We're all repping Reactor Project stuff. Thank you for the hoodies. These are sick.
Yeah. Right.
This is so nice.
Well, I'll let Rich give the introduction to Reactor Project, because he approached me with the opportunity. So,
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we all talked about it earlier about just trying to raise the professionalism of the sport. And, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the apparel that's out there right now. And I own some of it, but our goal was to try to elevate that and make it a little bit more professional and something that you could wear to work, wear to a happy hour, maybe even wear to church if you had a casual church. And none of our stuff really screams disc golf. It's subtle. It's there. You'll see a chain here,
Yeah.
or here we've got time to fly. That's kind of our tagline.
Right.
Yeah.
But really, it ties into everything that we've talked about. Is just trying to elevate, make a little bit more professional, a little bit more mainstream.
Yeah. The quality of this hoodie in particular is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This is going to be
That's been our top seller. That
since the day one I saw it, I was like,
I need that.
I need one of those.
That's why you brought us on the podcast. Now,
The only reason
Right.
I literally was like, Scott, if we get them, I bet we can get some
Yeah.
hoodies.
Right. So yeah, that is an aspect of, sometimes I try to compare disc golf to other sports too. So sometimes I think about skate, I think about part of the skate culture and how it's kind of similar to disc golf in a way. But that streetwear vibe you've got with skate is kind of that thing too, is that something to be proud to wear of. And it kind of, once again, it's that passing another disc golfer saying, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
It's that, commonality. So I think that's really what it's been about as much as anything, is just trying to elevate once again to some degree the apparel side of things too. And that's the other thing that we've seen. I'm a numbers guy, and I'm always looking at disc golf in the industry, at the stores, and what's moving and what's not. And we've seen a lot of COVID golfers that have really got all the plastic they need for the most part, but they got that expendable income, and they're looking for other things to invest in. So you're seeing bags and accessories and apparel kind of just very much like skate did. That used to be, you walked into a skate shop and it was 90% decks and wheels and that stuff, and they might have a few t-shirts or hats in the corner, but now you walk into a skate shop and it's like 50-50. They sell just as much apparel as they do other things too. So another trend that we're seeing a little bit, trying to stay ahead of that too. Ricky is on board with the team. He reps Reactor Project too, so that's been fun to see him and get involved with that too. So
yeah.
But yeah,
It's almost like it's the opposite of ball golf. Ball golf apparel traditionally has been very traditional and stoic, right?
right.
Country clubbish. And but recently you've seen these brands come on board like Bad Birdie, and there's other ones that I can't think of, but they're a little bit splashier and a little bit more colorful. Well, disc golf, we kind of have that splashy thing covered.
Right.
So we're kind of
meet
coming
in the
in
middle,
and
right.
a little bit more of a corporate and a professional
Right.
look. So
Yeah, and I mean, in our world, they're buying Bad Birdie shirts and then putting disc golf logos on it, right?
Yeah.
We're sort
Right.
of riding that wave
Right.
versus someone coming out and actually designing
from
that
scratch.
kind of from
for
scratch.
Disc golf. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
We just need about 1,000 people to agree with us, and then we'll be better.
Right. Yeah, it's a slow grind getting started.
It is, yeah.
Finishing our
Yeah.
second year now. And
Yeah.
so, but yeah,
Thanks
it's
for
been progress.
wearing our stuff, guys.
hell
That's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, this is great.
cool.
It's great. Oh, I mean, if you want, I'll keep hitting you up for more stuff. I can do that for you.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So I would go back to Ricky, your guys' relationship. Like you were on coverage. I mean, you were caddying for Ricky in Florida.
Yeah, so of course, Pete Cashen, always comes back to Pete. He introduced me to Ricky right about the time they were working on the contract negotiations with the Dynamic Disc. So I got to know Ricky a little bit then. And then Ricky's first thing he wanted to do when he signed that contract was start a foundation. So that's where Pete got us connected. I'd been talking to Pete about how I wanted to be more involved with the charitable part of the sport. And yeah, so we started his foundation.
Yeah, because you're the president, right?
I am currently, yeah. Doug with the PDGA was the president, but when he got the job with the PDGA, he had to
Okay.
resign, and I took over. And yeah, Pete's on the board too. And but yeah, that's been a great thing. Most of that money comes from Ricky's donation annually, but yeah, we put a lot of discs in
The
school.
big check in Nashville.
Right,
That was
right.
cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was a great story. Disc Golf Network was going to air it. I'm surprised they didn't while they were in Nashville. But there's a Amazon driver in Nashville. He's a disc golfer, and every year Amazon has a contest, and their top 5 rated drivers from customer satisfaction surveys and things, they give them a $25,000 bonus, and they also let them choose a charity of their choice to donate $25,000 to. So, this guy, he contacted me about a month ago, and he was trying to decide between Ricky and Paul Macbeth Foundation, but then his mom's a teacher, so he fell in love with that idea. So he had one of those big, $25,000, and then we got Ricky, of course, when he found out about it, we got him hooked up, and he took him out to dinner one night in Nashville, and so great story. So $25,000 donation.
That's awesome.
To the foundation, which is pretty cool. Right.
Well, yeah. So maybe talk a little bit about how Ricky. So your foundation with Ricky is different from like Paul's foundation, and like different focus, or
there are a few foundations now, which is we're hoping to see that grow in the future. Paul's got his foundation, the Paul Macbeth Foundation. Ricky's got his foundation. Paul Uleberry, he's got his is a kind of a scholarship program thing. He's getting kicked off too, but Paul's and then there's other foundations too. Yeti's got Edge, and there's Uplay with Zoe Andike. So those are all people that I talk with quite a bit, and we try to do some collaborative things when we can, and try not to, try to assist each other and not have too much overlap. But Paul's foundation is mainly about building courses, and with a focus even on international courses. So they've done, I've lost track now. So they kind of partner with an existing foundation, Eagles Wings, Dustin, I think. But anyway, they got off the ground. He was the first one really to do a major foundation when he got his contract with Discraft. I can't think when that really took off. And then, Ricky's foundation, rather than courses, we focus on introducing to schools. That's our first initiative, was the First Putt initiative.
Okay.
Which is specifically providing a basket and 50 putters to any gym teacher out there that's wanting to introduce the sport. So we were overwhelmed the first year. I think we delivered, within the first year and a half, we delivered packages to all 50 states. And but I think we had 1,500 requests, and we were only able to fill a couple hundred of them a year. So we're on a backlog right now. So that's cool. Definite need that we've determined.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 1,500 requests is not a joke.
Yeah.
So that's the first initiative, and that's something we're keeping going. Like I say, that's kind of driven a lot. Ricky does annual donations to that, and we do get some donations from the general public, and a few key sponsors. And this $25,000 is going to go a long way. We just got, and then the second initiative we got going now is, which is Kansas City is going to be the first one. It's a youth academy course. So it's one we're working on. It's up on the north side of Kansas City. It's a course designed specifically for youth and families to introduce. I know Brendan came out and walked the course with me not too long ago. So
yeah, it's a really nice property.
Right.
It's right by Worlds of Fun, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's up.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's kind of close to the store up north, kind of between the store and just south side of Liberty, up by Stroud's is where it's at up there.
Well, you were describing when you were walking. I was like, this is going to be really, really cool.
Is it 18 or 9?
So it's right now, we're the first phase is 9 holes. And, it's about a mile from where I live. It's just somewhere it's one of those areas in the woods. It's a city property. I always walk my dog back there and kind of fell in love. It's 168 acres. It's a city-owned property, but it's not a city park. And it's maintained also by the police academy, which is up north, it's been a very cool project.
Which is like in the parking lot almost, which is also nice when you're talking about safety and all that other stuff. So
and it's just a kind of a harmonious thing that's happened there. And one cool side effect from it is I started talking with council people and the city director and the guys at the police department that maintain it. Now I've got 4 or 5 cops up there that are involved, and they're playing now. And so, they're excited. So it's going to be nice for them too. It's going to be a place where they can decompress after a stressful shift or something like that too. So it's really kind of coming together. But my point of that is,
where's the funding coming from? Is it from
it's Nexus. We're doing a little bit of funding, of course. And then, the foundation, Ricky's very much behind it. So we've got some funding coming from the foundation. And we've got some other local businesses and stuff that I've been working with that are doing some donations on that too. But we're hoping it's going to be a model that we can then take to other markets and really have a place that's designed specifically for youth, not only youth, so there's the safety factor and those things that Brent mentioned, but also designed to support youth leagues, which is going to be kind of our third initiative. So we think it's important to introduce it to them in school, give them a place to play, and then give them, leagues just like any other mainstream sport. A 13-week spring league that you get a T-shirt and $60 to play or whatever. And
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
you
that's
come out
just
on Tuesday
so
nights.
huge. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
introduce them to them, and then you said give them a place to play. I think that is an area we talked earlier about it, but there is
Right.
a lack there of a place for them to play is limiting.
Right. And it's, disruptive if you try to have a youth league on a local busy course. And as we mentioned before, some of the beginner-friendly courses are the busiest courses.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
to try to take a youth league out to, Cedar Ridge or Hobby Hill or one of those courses, it's completely disruptive. And it's counterintuitive. And there's, as welcoming as the community is, sometimes there's negative first impressions if you're slowing things down or something like that.
Yeah, I
too.
mean, think
So-
about doing the same thing, but in ball golf at St. Andrews. Like, oh, we're just going to bring a bunch of guys, a bunch
Right.
of elementary kids out here. Like, can you imagine what
No.
the St.
Right.
Andrews or like all of those?
Right.
They,
Ball golfers are stuffy.
Right.
well, and I think you're right.
Right.
I think it would be the same in disc golf. It'd be like, do we pass you guys? Like, what's like
Right.
this? Oh my, I
Right.
can't believe this. Like,
But part of it's, giving them a place and the design of it, and this is something that Brent had some input on too, is so the holes are, rather than having one tee pad and multiple baskets, it's one nice, pin placement that's got a beautiful green, and then you have different tee pads. So you're playing different levels or playing together to the same target. So
Yes.
as Brent mentioned, he may throw from the 300-foot shot, and then, how old's your oldest son?
7.
Seven-year-old?
Oldest is 14.
So maybe a
But
14.
I have a 7 to 14.
Right. So maybe a 14-year-old might throw from
You have 200 kids or something.
Right.
I had to think about that.
So there's a 300-foot tee pad, a 250, and then there's a 200.
Yeah, 'cause,
250, 200, 150. So they're, you're all playing to the same experience. It's not like, you're playing to that basket, I'm playing to this basket or whatever.
The beauty of that is they get to watch me throw, and they're like, "Oh, this is amazing!
Right.
Like, look how far Dad can throw, or whatever." But then we walk up to, my 5th grader's tee pad.
Right.
He throws, but we all are like, "Whoa, look what Noah did!"
Yeah.
But then we get to walk up to where Julian would throw, and then we're all like, "Dang, dude!" Like you're
Yeah.
kind of celebrating each other as you
Right.
play.
You
But,
might
but
all
at the
three
end of the
par.
day,
Yeah.
we're all on the green, and we're all putting the same basket,
Right.
and we all have the opportunity at birdie or par, but it's the same thing as we move on.
Right.
Well,
which is really
and
cool.
I think we stole that a little bit from ball golf because they have
For
those
sure.
different tees,
Right.
and it's okay.
It's
right?
okay.
You know what? It's okay to play the forward tee.
Right.
They're hundreds of years ahead of us. They figured it out.
Literally hundreds. So you said you had like 1,200 requests or a lot of requests. What was the process to determine through the foundation where you were going to award these
Right.
stipends for courses?
So we do have Paige Shue was our up until now. She was an administrative person that was working for us. So we vetted those out. So she'd kind of go through those and kind of narrow it down to the top 10 or 12 candidates each week. And we, at a board meeting, whatever, we kind of select from there. Sometimes it was based on logistics. A lot of times that's what it is. We're trying to kind of spread things out a little bit too. But,
Interesting.
the backside of that initiative, the first putt initiative, one thing we have found out that, you can get resources where they need to be, but then the maintenance of it's key. So now we're 3 years into it. We're going back to those first packages we delivered, and we're following up, and we're finding out, well, that teacher moved on. Maybe it's not getting used the way it should. So we're kind of now working with clubs more. So the philosophy on that is to get each established club in each market resources, and then they can help administrate those within their, maybe they get it to a school for 2 weeks, and then they take it and they give it to another school. So that's kind of what we're working on there too, is everything sounds good in theory, but then when you kind of get into the practical part of it, the need's definitely there. The administration of it's the hard part, right? So we're kind of fine tuning that right now and making sure the resources. But to that note, if anybody's listening, anybody wants to go to the Sakibon Foundation's website, we're in desperate need of donations and sponsorships too. So you can sponsor a school for like $250. And it's amazing that one donation can impact And in one school, it's like 500-600 kids get introduced to the sport in just a matter of a couple of years. So, but yeah, so we're still, as I said, we're new. We're learning the ropes, and Edge does. And another thing, Edge does a good job of that. You know, Jay Redding does an exceptional job. He also provides packages. So they provide packages at low cost. So that's the other thing. A lot of times school teachers have a very limited budget. But, you know, maybe they can get a couple $100 or something like that. So that's the one thing that Edge is doing real good. So we do, the ones that don't get accepted, we do refer them to Uplay and Edge and things like that too. So, but yeah, a lot going on with that. Didn't mean to get off on a rant.
No,
with
that's
that,
a
but
great
yeah, it's been a
story.
lot of
That's
fun.
awesome.
Yeah, and Ricky's been amazing. He's very, very passionate about it. So.
There's just a lot that goes into all that I just don't think people really realize. It's like, okay, you've got a foundation. Like, dude, it's a lot of work,
Right.
and a lot of it is volunteer. Like, yeah, you're the president and things like that.
Right.
You know, maybe Paige Shue gets a little something, but it's like,
Right.
most of this is just because people really care and just want to like make sure
Right.
that the sport is growing in the right way, that even kids have an opportunity to even try it.
Right.
You know, otherwise there's just no chance for these kids to even to try it, you know. They might see a basket at a park and have no idea what that metal thing is unless their parents like tell them about it or something like that. So I know I want to like get involved with my younger kids and trying to start something like locally and things like that, you know.
Yeah, we've talked about this junior league of some sort.
Some sort. I know it will happen, and I'm like super stoked when it does. I have to be patient. I'm not a patient person, but like right now, I'm just gonna make sure my kids know about it, and I invite their friends to play with us and stuff like that. And so that's what I'm doing kind of right now.
Right.
And it's really fun, but it's just the opportunity. It's like the opportunity, and then if they like it, give them the other opportunity to like go play a course that they can actually have fun at, like Shawnee Mission Art. Is that the right name of the course?
I think they just call it Art 9.
The Art 9, like Black Hoof 9. Just give them a place to go have a good time.
Well, yeah, I mean,
And
it's
feel like they actually playing this sport.
yeah, like we see in Finland now is like it's reached like such a saturation point that like boys age 8 to 12 are like that's a sport that they're wanting to play,
Right.
and so like there's been surveys and it's like so it's like reached that point in that culture of just being well known enough, and there's a course everywhere, like little 5-hole course. And when we were over there, it's like you could see they're just kids, like nobody's logging those rounds on UDisc either, but you can see like there's kids just constantly playing this 5-hole course or whatever.
That's the thing is they have, I was talking about earlier, like I can literally see my kids playing the Art 9 round
Just
after round. They're just running
Right.
Yeah.
and loving it and thinking it's an amazing thing.
It's
Like,
an important
So,
thing.
Scott, this may be a stupid question. Is UDisc used in Europe and in Scandinavia?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's used globally, and Norway, Sweden, Finland, they're all seeing like
That's
tons
cool.
of growth right now.
So that's one thing that disc golf has over ball golf, this universal platform to be able to monitor and check and get rated. Because ball golf, it has the GIN system, but it doesn't really have an app that you can track and rate and observe and watch other people.
Yeah.
So that's one thing where we're ahead.
Yeah.
And I think it's because of the newness of the sport.
Right.
It just
There's a lot of
why not?
advantages, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah, I really like the idea of leaning into that, the newness of it and the advantages of that.
yeah,
You know,
we don't have
so-
any, anything to hold us back,
Right.
really.
Right.
And by the way, I feel like I should give a shameless plug to BKS. This is some good beer.
it is really good.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe a little strong too. I don't know. Oh, shoot.
Oh man, yeah. Alex Moss and everybody at BKS, they hook us up every episode.
Yeah.
I say it from every time. Episode 0, they're just in. Like,
Right.
disc golf? Sure.
Part of the
Definitely.
community.
Love it.
Yeah. Important
So, no, they're fantastic, and the beer is just incredible. Like, I said it last time. They're probably like top 10 in the world. I don't know. They're so good.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's right in Brookside. It's incredible. You can order online, pick it up,
And
go there,
support
just
disc
go there and
golf.
hang out.
Yeah.
Like, it's so cool. So,
And are they opening up a new location? I thought I saw that somewhere.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Well, if they aren't, they should.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And if you're
might be right.
here for Kansas City Wide Open, you should definitely check them out.
I just talked to Alex today, so they'll be out there Saturday and Sunday at Kansas City Wide Open selling beer.
Right.
Awesome.
So if you want to try it and you're in the area, look for their tent. I have no idea. Look for their tent or something.
Yeah.
Pick up a 4-pack. Like,
How's the citrusy one? Is it good?
That's great. Right.
All right.
Yeah, it's really good.
Citra.
Kind of like a Blue Moon kind of vibe to it. Yeah.
yeah, no, they're super dope. So I know you guys are both involved in the Kansas City Club quite a bit. Can you just talk about the Kansas City Club and sort of where we're at with that and just what we're trying to do with the club? And
More JT than me, but yeah.
Right.
okay,
A Rich, former board member of the club, So we talk about the club, we're talking about Kansas City Disc Golf Club. So I
Yes.
think that's, that's another one of those community things that you've got the OGs out there that were involved with the club, and you've got some new COVID golfers. And I think right now, Pete and I are working on a lot with and first of all, there's 7 or 8 volunteers on the board right now. So there's a lot of volunteer hours that go into, and what does the club do, right? So the club, number one, we maintain the MOUs with the club courses. So we've got 17 club courses that the club is responsible for. So these are the heart and soul courses. These are Waterworks, Rosedale. You've got Wyco. I'll go on and on. There's 17 different club courses that are maintained. So not only do we work with the cities to maintain these parks stay open and they're protected, we provide insurance is another big thing. So when we've got club events, so unfortunately we had an incident at Cliff Drive a few years ago when a young man was shot, and we find out at one point in time we didn't have adequate insurance. So the club got insurance. We run the leagues. So it really is truly, it's a not-for-profit organization. It's the heartbeat of the local community. And as I was mentioning before, we do the store, and we have a lot of overlap with things too. We have a lot of the same goals in mind, but I just think it's important for the local community to understand the importance the club is for the community and how important it is to be a member. Membership's $25 a year, and it's just a real good way to support the local community, get connected, and we're just kind of doing a membership drive right now for the club. So I
Okay.
think that's something that's important to understand. It's, the Kansas City Wide Open would not be in Kansas City this coming up weekend if it were not for the club. Jerry Patterson is the director of the Missouri Parks, and he maintains he's the vice president of the Missouri Park Association. He's the one that drives Liberty, the relationship he has there and works that. I think we logged, Pete will correct me, but I don't even want to estimate the number of volunteer hours we tracked last year through the club. We provide the
Hundreds,
equipment.
thousands.
Hundreds and thousands of hours every year go into club functions, and we have the club championships. We have all those things too. So I think we're trying to get the information out and do some drives and have information out how to join and things like that too. But that's the difference between some communities where disc golf is thriving and some that are not. Is really the health of the club is what you'll see consistently throughout cities that are driven by disc golf or known as disc golf destinations. So, but I know you had a little experience with the club before too. Do you want to add anything to that? Or?
Well, I was caught off guard with the amount of work and effort that happens behind the scenes that nobody even knows about. And there's reasons why Kansas City is where it is as far as disc golf. And some of it is the OG and the foundation they laid, but the work that the club does, and you probably don't pat yourself on the back. The club doesn't pat themselves on the back enough with the work that is done. I played Heritage this week during the afternoon, and I walked off the 18th hole. There was a bunch of people around that practice basket, and I'm like, "Hey, what's going on?" Well, it's league night,
Right.
And there was like 50 people there, and it's like, that's the shit that's important,
Right.
right? And the club is behind that, and being from the Midwest, we don't get on a rooftop and wave a flag,
Right.
But it's important work, and I'm glad you guys are doing it.
Right. So not only membership, but also volunteers, and those type of things too. So it's just a good way to get involved. It's a great way to get connected. And things kind of the club kind of got pushed to the back burner for a while now, but we're trying to bring it back to the forefront. So it's something that's, I know a passion of a lot of us right now is trying to promote the club in that way. So
Yeah.
appreciate the opportunity to talk about it a little bit. So, right.
Definitely. Yeah, because I mean, it all comes back to like, if you want improvements on courses, if you're like, you know, probably most of us, if you're back there being like, man, like the course is kind of like whatever,
Yeah.
it's like, well, you can help. You
Right.
know, obviously shop at Nexus,
Right.
be a member. You know, it's not a ton, volunteer.
chainsaw.
Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to be a course designer or anything. Like, if you just show up or like try a little bit, like I guarantee you those courses are going to get improved.
Yeah.
Right. So
It is. You know, it can be a little trying sometimes when you're out there. I'm the coordinator at Waterworks Park, and I've just passed that baton on. But, you know, I would try to organize volunteer days, and, you know, we'd promote it for a week, and we'd have 3 or 4 people show up, and, you know, you're working on the course, and there's hundreds of people playing through while you're doing it, you know, and you're thinking, oh, man. Some people use and some people give back, you know, but it's an education thing is what I think it is more than anything. You know, it's, once again, it's not just an amenity that happens by accident. There's a lot of work that goes into it. So, or, you know, sometimes people don't have the time to volunteer. You know, the club can use donations for money for projects too. So, you know, that type of thing goes a long way too. So some people, it's easier to donate a little money than it is to volunteer hours. It has the same impact at the end of the day. So at the end of the day, things have to happen for, you know, behind the scenes, but yeah.
yeah.
Well, as we kind of like wrap up, I kind of want to get your takes, both your takes, but JT in particular, like what's next for Nexus, but also disc golf, like maybe in the next short term, but also 5-10 years. What do you see?
You know, I see the sport to continue to elevate, number one, to be considered a mainstream sport, I think is one thing I'd say in general. Whereas I mentioned before, there are youth leagues that are available. You know, kids can play soccer or basketball, baseball, and disc golf's on that list. You know, so that's one thing that I think that looking at that crystal ball you're talking about a little bit, I hope that's something that's going to be available to kids in the near future for youth. One thing that Rich and I talk a lot about is, you know, that sense of community, taking that a little bit to the next step as far as like venues after you go play around, to have some place to go for a 19th hole type thing too. So we've talked a lot about incorporating that into the store, maybe to have, you know, maybe where you can sit down and have a beer and watch the game, and, you know, there's like another round and some other things out there, kind of adopting that philosophy. I think that trend's probably going to continue. I would say that kind of following in the footsteps of golf a little bit, I think, in a way too. I think that's going to happen. Another thing, when I look at the sport, I think disc golf, the beautiful thing about it too, from a business perspective, I think it's recession proof. And what I mean by that, it is a sport or activity. When things get a little tight, you know, maybe it's a little easier to go around a disc golf than it is to go play golf or something like that. Or, you know, we saw what happened in COVID when things got kind of scary a little bit. You know, it was the ability to be out in distance and everything too, but it was also to do with circumstances and uncertainty. So I think that, you know, getting out and playing and being able to do that economically, I think, is another thing that I look at. So I think we're going to see, you know, a lot of people feel like the sport's in a recession, but it's really more just it kind of fell back to the you know, it was on like a 10% growth chart forever.
Growth, yeah.
Then you had this big spike, which was unsustainable, right? But then when you get back to that kind of steady 8 to 10% growth, it seems like it's a recession. So there was a lot of stores and things like that. I do think we're going to see some hardships for some of the stores that really came about during COVID. A lot of those guys are struggling right now. That's another passion too, is to try to have some type of assistance for stores that are the heartbeat in some communities, and the guys that have done all the work and all that are struggling right now. I hope to provide them some relief in some way too. But I do think you're going to see some of those fall out because they built their model on a growth structure that wasn't sustainable too. So, but I think that sport's going to continue to grow. I think we'll see a few more spikes. But it's the best kept secret out there, I think, still in a lot of ways. So I see that it checks all the boxes, like you were talking about. It's going to be a mainstream sport. We're seeing it in colleges now. I think the Olympics are next. I think that so that's the main thing, is I just see that legitimacy curve just continuing to go up, is being accepted as just a mainstream sport option.
Yeah, I mean, like skateboarding just got into Olympics, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I've always kind of it's sort of similar, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of a deal where it's a cultural thing, it's a kind of a community thing. Like you see somebody wearing skate shoes, you're like,
Right.
I'm with you.
Uh-huh.
You see the kick flip, like
Right.
scuffs on the shoe, you're like, dude, I know more than you think, like you make that little connection,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, disc golf, frisbee sports in general, like,
It's not a fad.
Yeah,
That's
just
what
be more normalized. It's like where every city Parks and Rec department is like, we don't have a disc golf course.
Right.
Like we have tennis court, we have playgrounds, pickleball.
Yeah.
Right.
But like, where's our disc golf course?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's interesting you say that. There's no really governing body. You mentioned soccer, and there's youth soccer and sporting that kind of controls. The Kansas City Club is the closest thing we have a governing body that's kind of looking at the whole thing. But where I see the sport going, and I don't want to repeat what JT said, I see a newer demographic starting to enter the sport, and it's on the verge of being cool. The sport is on the verge. And if you go out and play it, if you're an athlete, if you go out and play it, there's a lot to it. There's a lot more than you'd think. There's strength, power, finesse. Right. There's a mental aspect. There's a lot to it. So I think you're beginning to see the demographic change. But I think the thing that I really like that you already mentioned, ball golf has this social aspect, and it's in the clubhouse. It's the 19th hole. Everybody likes to sit around afterwards and share an adult beverage and talk about the good shots, the bad shots, their equipment, or whatever it is. And that's missing from disc golf. There's really nowhere to go after. So I'll give you an example. Last night, the company that I retired from has a disc golf league. We play every Wednesday. Last night we had 16 people. We played Cedar Ridge. Afterwards, we went and had a happy hour, and the company funds that. And it was 9 o'clock, and I was the first one to leave, and nobody wanted to leave. They just wanted to sit around and talk,
right.
And it was mostly about disc golf, but it was also about other things. But that sense of community, that spirit, that's the thing that I think is the next step. Mm-hmm. And it's a big cost. I mean, to build a clubhouse or to do something that makes sense financially, because disc golf is free. There's no income really to build. Mm-hmm. But I think that's that next step, that sense of camaraderie, that brotherhood that we have when we're playing, but you want to extend it. And that's the other thing. Disc golf is not as long as ball golf. So you play for an hour and a half, sometimes you want a little bit more, and it could see itself. I could see that social aspect.
Mm-hmm. I think I would personally encourage people to try and take that step. I think I've noticed that just in general with disc golf versus ultimate. Mm-hmm. And ultimate, what you're talking about is is a guaranteed. We're gonna show up. We're gonna play summer league, and it's guaranteed we're all hanging out.
Right.
Like we'll hang out at the fields until the park
shuts the lights
kicks
off.
us out.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're all hanging out on the fields till the sun goes down, and then the park kicks us out. And then from there, we're going to Martin City Brewery.
Right.
And we're all hanging out, and you'll look around Martin City Brewery, 50% of this place is all ultimate players.
Right.
And it's that's what I'm personally used to. And I have noticed with disc golf in general, that doesn't happen as much, or the invite's not out there as much, or when I played league at Heritage, it was we'd play the round, cool. And then, people bounced. I don't know where they went, but it was just okay. And I'm home by 8 p.m. and it's this is my night off. I would like to be involved in a community of some kind. And I think it's more of an encouragement to people out there, I don't know, try stuff. Maybe tell people you're going to go out later, or maybe don't just go home. Or I think we can do a better job as a disc golf community. And that's just my personal subjective perspective. But
to that point, so last year, I think the year before with Waterworks, the storage support in the league there, and basically we went ahead and staffed it where we extended the hours where it was a flex start, where you could come in as early as 3:30, where traditionally it was a shotgun start at 5:45 or 6 o'clock, right? The problem with that is then, you're there until 8:30, so there were some young parents and things like that didn't accommodate, but they wanted to play. So we thought, okay, we'll start a flex start at 3:30. So you can tee off anytime. So you can tee off at 3:30 and be home by 6 for dinner, right? But what we found in doing that is we lost that sense of community to a degree because people were starting off all the time. Whereas when it was a shotgun start, everybody gathered around, there was announcements, and then you talk it off, and everybody's coming off at the same time, or we're giving out cash or payout or whatever. So for that league, we went back to a shotgun start. But at the same time, on Tuesday nights, we have a flex start at Hobby Hill, which is, we had 72 people last night already. We'll get close to 100 people in some weeks.
That's a lot.
And people love it because they can. It's flexible. That is a night they can go play if they need to get back. So we've got offering options, I guess is what I'm getting at. Ultimately is going to be the best thing. But that's the closest thing I can think of to are those leagues, right? Or even at tournaments before COVID. There was the players meeting, and then everybody got together afterwards, and they went over the awards and everything. Now it's like, everything's online. You got your app, and you just don't even go to the players meeting. You just show up on this hole, you play, and then you bounce, like you're saying, right? So we've kind of lost. That was that kind of disconnection between the OGs and the new players too that we've kind of seen too. So I think we need to do a better job, and it can be maybe even something at the park, or maybe.
I think just as a community of disc golfers, just be aware that like people want to hang out. They want to talk about their round. They want to talk about the league. They want to go get pizza afterwards. Like they want to hang out with you.
Right.
So if you feel like you're an OG person or like a veteran or someone who's been around, like, I don't know, maybe throw some invites out. Like, see, like, oh, this guy's new. Like, hey, we're going to go do this. Like, I don't know. It's a little bit different, but
I think there's
putting league helps out a lot. I want to say that putting league, I feel like, is really fun. At the parlor, like, I do feel like there's a community there because we're all in this tiny, hilarious, fun space. But there's a bar there. Not that alcohol has to be a part of it, but it's we're all in there. There's like 50 of us, and you're just naturally gonna meet people and talk to people, and it's really nice.
Been a beautiful thing.
So JT, you've seen at the store, people come in, and they're not going to buy. They're not in the market to buy anything, but they want to just talk. It is.
They want to be in the
they want to be in the nest of disc golf, and
I have to being honest. Sometimes I get conflicted as a business owner. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I've got staff that are just shooting the shit with somebody up there or whatever. I'm like, but at the same time, I realize how beneficial that is, and I'm totally encouraging of it at the same time too, right? So that is it. It's that balance between the two. It's like, that is the service we want to provide, and it is that central connecting point where people can go and get connected, and that's what I think really this generation is losing a little bit, is just that ability to be physically connected, and if we can get back to that.
It is a little bit different because, like, if you're talking ultimate, we're talking frisbee sports in general, but ultimate versus disc golf, one thing that always just comes to mind is disc golf is an individual sport, and ultimate is you're on a team. Like, if you sign up for Summer League Ultimate, you are automatically friends with 12 people. Like, you're on their team.
Well,
they want you to succeed. You're all
And
together.
there's a
Versus an individual, like, you're put on a card of 3 other people. It's just way smaller. So I just think the before and after of a round of any kind, we as a community probably could work a little bit harder at that.
I agree.
but if you're playing ultimate, you party. That's almost like part of the deal, isn't it? I mean,
I think it's just because you get put on a team.
Well, I do.
Yeah.
Well, it's like I'm thinking about pitch softball leagues. I mean, those guys all, they hang out and the same type of thing. It's a team. There's 12 guys or whatever, and it's just as much about partying afterwards as it is playing an hour and a half game or whatever. So I think it is that. So if we could foster that in some way, that would be helpful.
So I'm not going to name any names here, but there is a watering hole that's close to Black Hoof and close to Cedar Ridge. I went to both of those establishments and said, hey, you guys should put a sign on the 18th hole or after the 18th hole and say, come to blah, blah. And if you're a disc golfer, you get 10% or whatever. They literally looked at me like I was from Mars. Like, what are you talking about? And so that's kind of goes back to a previous topic about trying to come over that stigma of frisbee golf and disc golf. But God, they would get business. Like if I'm at Black Hoof coming off 18, hey, come to this establishment and have a beer and nachos or whatever. And
Yeah.
I'd be
It's
all
like
over that.
there's like literally like 100 people an hour like finishing at 6
Yes,
p.m.
I know.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? Like, all right, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it starts with being aware of it. You're right. I mean, I think
that's all I'm saying is, hey guys, as players, just be aware. Like,
Yeah.
you probably want a community as well, not just like your one friend that you play on a lunch round with. Like, I don't know,
Yeah.
the community is awesome. So,
I like it.
anyways,
Yep.
thank you guys for coming on the show.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for having us.
This was
great.
Been awesome.
This has been fantastic. Rich, you're coming back. We got so much to talk
A lot of
about.
plastic over there.
Yes, maybe
into
we
the
partner
history.
with Dick Parker because
Yeah.
I've seen his collection when I'm on video calls with him. It's like, dude, you have so many frisbees.
So many frisbees. Yeah.
And you guys would be really fun to talk to. Dude, JT, thank you so much.
You bet. Yeah.
I've got a couple gifts for you guys before you bounce. Thank you for bringing
Yeah.
some Reactor
Yeah.
Project apparel. Loving it. Thank
Love
you
it.
so much.
Yeah. You
Cool.
guys have been awesome. Thank you.
Nice.
Yes,
Thank you for
yes.
taking an interest.
You bet, guys.
Hell yeah.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
It's been really fun to work with you guys. You two and Pete for sure. Just personally, on a day-to-day business aspect, it's been really fun. You guys are incredible.
It's been
Yeah.
mutually beneficial for sure. Been a great thing.
We've done some good stuff
Right.
together too. So.
Hell yeah.
All right.
Cool. Well, I got some BKS stickers. Again, we've already repped them. The beer is incredible. They provide it for us every episode. Alex Moss, everybody at BKS, thank you so much. A couple
Awesome.
stickers for you guys to rep.
Awesome. Love it.
Also, want to thank Grip Equipment. They've also been sponsoring the show since episode 0, so we got more stickers for you guys.
Okay.
And the stickers come in everything. Every time you order anything from Grip, those stickers are in the box. I love stickers. I just ordered Nike shoes, and I was so disappointed that it didn't have a Nike sticker in the box. I was like, come on. Grip gives you 2 stickers.
Not just one, two.
2.
Love
So also with Grip, I got you some nice hats. They are providing you guys some nice hats.
Lovely hats.
it. Love it.
These are like classic truckers, but they custom design these to be a lower profile. So they fit a little bit more snug on the skull, which is awesome.
Sweet.
And JT, I know you bought a
Prezi.
Meteor and you were loving it at Rosedale
yeah.
Cup. So I had to pull some Grip stamped Meteors. I mean,
Sweet.
these are, you guys can debate on colors, but
I'll just take
they wanted to give you guys a couple Meteors. So
this is
That
great.
is awesome.
Everybody's
Beautiful.
gonna have a understatement.
Look at that.
Mid-range. It's magic. I
and
picked them up that morning, was throwing them that round, wasn't I?
yeah, and you were throwing them really well. I was like, Dick, JT really likes Meteors. You mind if I give him a couple? And he was like, go for it.
Right.
Boy, that fits in the hand
Yeah.
pretty good, doesn't it?
It's a great move.
And they're just beautiful. Like the swirls are insane.
Right.
So, and those are custom stamps, well designed. Also, Nexus, you guys are also sponsoring the show. Thank you so much, supporting everything. Like it's been really fun. I appreciate everything you guys are
bet.
doing. I'm kind of just honored to be like a part of it. Like it feels really cool. So thank you.
That's another one of our core mission statements is to really support the community, right? So, whether we're employing staff members or helping support other things, that's part of what we do. So we're happy to be partnered up. It was Pete came to us after you guys had met and said it was a logical thing. He said these guys are on it. So the fact you're a disc golfer just made it that much easier. So
Yeah. No.
it's been a great thing.
And you
You
knocked
and your
it out of the
brother
park. It was,
Right.
It's been fun.
Yeah,
It's
I mean
been
this
fun.
right here, right? Thank
Hell
you.
yeah.
Big part of it. Big part of it. So, all right,
Thank you guys.
all right.
All right.
Thanks so much. All right.
Thank
Peace
you
out.
both.
See you guys.